Fact: losing money activates the same brain regions as physical pain. This isn't just a metaphor, it's a neurological reality. When you see your bank balance drop or an investment turn sour, your brain can interpret it as a genuine threat, similar to touching a hot stove. But why does a purely financial event trigger such a primal, physical response? To understand this, we need to look deep inside the architecture of the human brain. For decades, we've known that humans are wired to avoid pain. It's a fundamental survival mechanism. Neuroscientists have mapped the specific brain regions that light up when we experience physical discomfort. One of these key areas is the anterior insula. This region is deeply involved in processing negative sensations, from a sudden injury to a bitter taste. It acts as a warning system, telling us to stop, retreat, and avoid the source of harm. What's fascinating is that financial loss triggers this exact same area. Using functional magnetic resonance imaging, or fMRI, researchers can observe brain activity in real time. When participants in studies are shown they've lost money, the anterior insula becomes highly active. The brain doesn't neatly separate physical danger from financial danger. To its ancient wiring, a threat is a threat, and the pain response is its universal alarm bell. But the insula doesn't work alone. It communicates closely with another crucial part of the brain, the amygdala. The amygdala is our emotional processing center, particularly for fear and anxiety. When you lose money, the amygdala fires up, tagging the experience with a strong negative emotion. This creates a powerful memory. The brain is essentially learning, this situation is bad, avoid it in the future. This emotional valuation is what makes the memory of a financial loss so vivid and long-lasting, much more so than the memory of an equivalent gain. This neurological wiring gives rise to a powerful principle in behavioral economics known as loss aversion. Put simply, the pain of losing a certain amount of money feels much more intense than the pleasure of gaining that same amount. Studies have shown that for many people, the psychological impact of losing $100 is roughly twice as powerful as the positive feeling from gaining $100. You'd need to gain about $200 to offset the negative feeling of losing just $100. This isn't an irrational quirk, it's an evolutionary feature. For our ancestors living in resource-scarce environments, losing their food supply or tools could be a life-or-death situation. Gaining extra resources was good, but avoiding a catastrophic loss was essential for survival. Our brains evolved to be highly sensitive to potential losses to keep us safe. In the modern world, this survival instinct is applied to abstract concepts like money. The brain treats the number on your screen as a vital resource, and its potential disappearance as a direct threat to your well-being. This brings us to the brain's reward system. The prospect of a financial gain activates areas like the ventral striatum, releasing dopamine, the feel-good neurotransmitter. This creates feelings of pleasure and anticipation. It's the system that drives us to seek rewards, whether it's food, social connection, or financial profit. However, the fear and pain processing circuits, like the insula and amygdala, can often overpower this reward system. When faced with a decision involving potential gains and losses, the brain performs a rapid subconscious calculation. The potential pain of loss is weighed heavily against the potential pleasure of gain. Because of loss aversion, the scale is already tipped. The fear of losing often looms larger than the hope of winning, which can lead to conservative or risk-averse behavior. For example, some people might prefer to keep their money in a low-yield savings account rather than invest in the stock market, even if the potential long-term gains are higher. The brain is prioritizing the avoidance of the pain of a potential market downturn over the pleasure of a potential gain. This isn't about being smart or foolish, it's about how our brains are built. The emotional response to loss is automatic and immediate. The more rational, analytical part of our brain, the prefrontal cortex, has to work much harder to override this initial gut reaction. The prefrontal cortex is responsible for long-term planning, logical reasoning, and impulse control. It can analyze the situation and say, wait, this market dip is temporary. or "this loss is small in the grand scheme of things." But this process is slower and requires more cognitive effort than the instantaneous alarm bell from the amygdala and insula. The strength of this pain response can also be influenced by context. For instance, the pain of an unexpected loss feels far worse than a loss that was anticipated. If you invest in a volatile asset knowing the risks, your brain is somewhat prepared. But if your wallet is stolen, the shock and violation amplify the brain's pain response. The brain is constantly updating its model of the world and how secure it is. An unexpected loss shatters that sense of security, triggering a stronger stress reaction. So we see that the brain processes financial loss through a network of regions designed for survival. The anterior insula generates a pain-like sensation. The amygdala attaches a strong negative emotion to the event. This creates the powerful behavioral bias of loss aversion, where the sting of a loss is felt much more intensely than the joy of an equal gain. This reaction is a deeply ingrained, natural mechanism. It is not a flaw in our thinking, but a feature of a brain that evolved to prioritize safety and efficiency in a world full of threats. Understanding this neural basis doesn't eliminate the feeling, but it does explain why losing money can genuinely hurt. The pain is real because, to your brain, it is. To summarize, the feeling of pain from money loss is not an exaggeration. It's a genuine brain response. Neuroimaging shows that financial losses activate the same neural pathways as physical pain, specifically in regions like the anterior insula. This is compounded by the amygdala, which tags the experience with fear, leading to the powerful principle of loss aversion. This is why the negative impact of losing money is often twice as strong as the positive feeling of gaining the same amount. This isn't a sign of weakness, but a natural, efficient survival mechanism inherited from our ancestors. Our brains are simply wired to avoid threats, and in the modern world, financial loss is registered as a significant threat. If you find this interesting, like the video and subscribe to the channel Just Fact for more science-based finance and brain facts.